Welcome back. The 2021 spring meetings of the World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund and related ancillary event begins virtually today, April the 5th. At the heart of these spring meetings are discussions around progress on the work of the institutions. Other featured events include regional briefings, press conferences, and fora focused on international development, issues of debt, economic recovery, vaccines, and climate. Joining me to talk about this year's meeting is Priscilla Bonsu, a foreign legal advisor at a boutique international law firm in New York City. Hello, Priscilla. Great to have you.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So what are your expectations from this year's spring meetings?
Well, yes, the spring meeting of the IMF and the World Bank Group, as you already stated, is taking place in a virtual format again this week. It is ordinarily held twice a year, and this means that a group of leaders from government, from business, from international organizations, civil societies, along with a diverse group of experts from all around the globe will gather up starting today until April 11th. And these experts will assess the damage that the pandemic has caused over the past year and hopefully find a path forward and out of the pandemic. These global leaders will also most likely discuss current developments in the global economy and international financial markets, as well as forecasts for future developments and the possible policy responses. In addition, the IMF's global policy agenda will likely release its updated World Economic Outlook tomorrow, which is Tuesday, April 6th. And according to the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, it will actually include an upgrade to January's forecast for 5.5% of global economic growth. And so it looks rather positive for the economy. It looks like there is a growth headed coming towards us.
All right, looking at the agenda for the meeting, ensuring debt sustainability for economic recovery in Western and Central Africa, how achievable is this, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. So one of the key challenges and priorities for policymakers in 2021 will be sovereign debt sustainability and the broader issue of financing for development. The COVID-19 pandemic is the most severe and widespread shock that African countries have actually experienced in the past 30 years. And the collapse in economic activity has actually dried up revenues for public expenditures, which was happening precisely at a time when more spending was actually needed to combat the pandemic and to shore up economies. Now, the International Monetary Fund estimates that the African region will need an additional $345 billion to all the way through 2023. But despite the fact that debt sustainability is not an easily achieved goal during the pandemic, the African countries have actually received financial support from several institutions, including the multilateral and regional financial institutions and development agencies. And this program was actually called the Debt Service Standstill Initiative. And this initiative suspends sovereign debt repayments through the end of that year for the least developed countries in the world, which also includes African countries. So my personal take on this is that the international community at this point has to continue to support these efforts and work on a comprehensive framework for proper sovereign debt restructuring, which is an important gap in the global financial system, as debt restructuring will likely be inevitable for several countries in the coming years.
All right, Priscilla, what other key issues would you like to see addressed in this year's meeting?
Yes. Some of the other key issues that will be discussed will probably be how firms can reinvent themselves to create more jobs, and how governments can find ways to transform the crisis into an opportunity for growth, how policymakers can ensure that everyone that everyone benefits from a recovery and to ensure that inequality is not worsened. This particularly includes attention to the ways the pandemic has disproportionately actually affected women and girls. Another important point would be policy options, for example, that countries should have how countries should have to enhance resilient debt financing and to support efficient debt restructuring when needed, and to increase that transparency. And with regard to the pandemic altogether, I think it is important to discuss the work underway in developing countries to prepare for large-scale vaccine rollouts, the strengths and gaps in country readiness, measures to ensure access and distribution, and the importance of partnerships and cooperation across all stakeholders for success. And lastly, I think the global leaders must discuss how COVID-19 has created opportunities and challenges across research, finance, and policy as we work to build more resilient health and economic systems now and in the future.
All right, it seems like a lot of attention is focused on climate change and green investment. What more needs to be done to achieve this globally and especially in Africa?
I think it is crucial to consider investing in nature-based solutions to protect Africa's natural capital and biodiversity. Africa must also focus on self-sufficiency, sustainability, and an increased productivity from its own agricultural sector. It is also important to invest in large-scale renewable energy projects with little impact on the natural environment, and to invest in climate-resilient infrastructure. Another very important point is to resist the pressure to roll back already existing environmental legislation. And also, African governments must further emphasize local land and water use rights.
All right, before I let you go, let's talk about gender equality now. Do you think that's one area that needs to be discussed at the meeting?
Yes, the pandemic has exacerbated existing inequalities between women and men in almost all areas of life. In fact, various governments around the globe have reported a surge in domestic violence during the pandemic, and that women were on the front line tackling the pandemic. Women in the labor market were also very hit by the pandemic, and that it has further negatively affected work-life balance among women. Lastly, we as an international community have noticed a striking lack of women in COVID-19 decision-making bodies. And for these reasons, I think that gender equality should be a separate topic on the agenda and should be given at least as much attention as all of the other issues mentioned.
All right, Priscilla Bonsu, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your Easter with us. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.